with Ryan Ries. This is Live with Ryan Ries. Call now, 1-888-564-6173. Or post your questions using the hashtag #LiveRyanReese on his Instagram, Twitter, or Facebook.
Danny, I forgot to tell you that this is actually a live video feed from my website, so don't be picking your nose out.
All right.
You might get caught.
Yeah.
Hey, man, I'm excited. I got my good friend Danny Sanchez in studio. He's actually a pastor up in Northern California. He's the founder of the City Peace Project. It's a nonprofit ministry and volunteers as the lead chaplain for the city of San Jose Mayor's Gang Prevention Task Force in Silicon Valley. Legitness. Thanks, dude, for being on. I'm stoked that you this actually got to happen because you were down here with your family chilling, right?
Yeah, I'm glad to be out here, man. Just be able to share about what's going on, in our nation, not just in San Jose, not just in LA, in California, but all of our nation, we know that there's a violence epidemic, so.
Well, just for the listeners, I want to give a little bit of credibility to you. You have a lot, but you actually won or received an award from Obama administration.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about that.
So I created a crisis response program for the city of San Jose, faith-based. It's a chaplaincy. We help homicide victims' families. We support them, through their time of grief. Mm-hmm. We help them, and with the cost of, we get some donations for the cost of funerals. We help them with food. We help them arrange a funeral. Everything's free. And we also have a program with our county hospital. It's a bedside intervention for those that are injured in youth violence. So 24 people were nominated and 12 were awarded White House Champion of Change for youth violence intervention. And by God's grace, I was one of the people that was awarded that.
I remember, because obviously I follow you, I remember seeing it on Instagram, and I was like, what? This is legit. You told me, you're like, I'm going out, flying out there, but it went down, and you are being effective in your city. It's interesting because we went up there with the Whosoever's movement to tour some high schools recently this last year. Mm-hmm. So we went to Silicon Valley, and then we even went out to the east side, and it changes. It's just like LA, You got certain parts that are more, richer, then you got middle class, and you got like, inner city stuff, and it's the same vibe even in Northern California as we were hopping around to the different schools. But we got to link up and definitely go to schools all across that whole area. And what I noticed is the gospel works the same. Mm-hmm. It doesn't matter what end of town you're in. Yep. You proclaim the gospel message, and kids are running to Jesus. It's just the signs of the times that we're living in. That's why I wanted you on this radio show, because I've never had someone come in and actually talk about someone that's involved with youth violence and actually working with the government and being a part to see what's really happening hands-on. I mean, we could talk about statistics and stuff all night, but you're there. You're like the true Jesus ministry right there in the thick of it. So first of all, for you to even get involved with this whole gang unit and in the inner city stuff, what were you involved with gangs and stuff when you were younger?
Yeah, I was a wannabe, just, like most kids, like they're they have this type of lifestyle. Like, I came from a broken home. Dad was in and out of jail and prison, and my dad's awesome. I love my dad. But, at that time he was having a hard time, and my mom worked, long hours, and we lived with our grandparents, and I had a lot of free time, and, I made a lot of bad choices, and, and I chose to be involved and hang out with people that were in gangs, know. And I ended up being, getting arrested, going to juvenile hall, and I've been stabbed 11 times.
Dang!
Yeah.
In one shot?
Well, no, different times, but one of them was like maybe 8 times. I got jumped and I got stabbed, so multiple times, so.
Well, what's so interesting is we just did this post on the Whosoever's Instagram the other day, and it says 63% of youth suicides, 90% of homeless and runaway youth, 85% of youth with behavior disorders, 71% of all high school dropouts come from fatherless homes.
Yeah.
That's heavy.
You know what's crazy about that, Ryan, if you think about it? Because when you're a kid, and all of us have this, we have dreams, right?
Yeah.
Like you have these like people, like I remember when I was a kid, I wanted to be a doctor, a police officer. I wanted to be, a fireman, because I knew people in my community needed help, But somewhere between like, 5th and 6th grade, or even earlier, those dreams died because of the area that I grew up in, because of the violence, that was around me, my dreams died and I took a different path. But you know what? By God's grace and mercy, He restored that.
How'd you get saved?
Well, that's I was on probation, and I was about 29 years old, and I've heard the gospel many times. My uncle, his name is Eddie Munoz, shout out to him. He was praying for me. He's a pastor at Calvary San Jose for like 7 years, and I would just he would call me and pray for me, and I put the phone away from me, like, dude, just kind of like your story, right? Yeah. You hear that? Because I wanted, I wanted to party, man. I wanted to do my thing, and I didn't know what life was without substance abuse, without alcohol abuse, and without running wild, fighting and all this stuff. And so I found out that I had to get get tested because I couldn't drink or I couldn't do drugs, of course, right? So I heard about something that you drink Arm & Hammer and it cleans your system fast, which doesn't work.
Are you serious?
I'm serious. So
wait, Arm & Hammer, the cleaner.
Yeah. So I mixed it with water, and it was all bad. But anyways, I started like puking, and it looked like blood, and I think it was blood. And I'm like thinking, I was shaking. Remember, I'd heard the gospel.
Yeah.
My family in our homes, we had we had Bibles. We didn't really read it. Both of my grandparents were believers, and I knew, I had my own version of Jesus, and I said, God, if you're I started shaking, fell on my knees, and said, God, if you're real, because I know I could die right now. Where am I going to go?
Yeah.
If you're real, I surrender my life to you. I can't do this. And I fell on my knees and I was shaking. And I remember I called my uncle and he took me over to the church, and they had dorms there at the time at Calvary San Jose, and I stayed there and got discipled. But man, it was radical. I did I was still 95%. I was hanging around with some friends still, but I wouldn't drink anymore. I stopped using drugs immediately. I was delivered.
Yeah.
Right. Broke up with my girlfriend. All that stuff. And then the Lord just put me on a path, man, and just got the word and it really really radically transformed my life. But
So how old were you at that point?
I think I was 29 or 28.
29.
Yeah.
And then how long were you getting discipled at Calvary Chapel, San Jose?
I was at Calvary for about 9 years. So I mean, I had there's a pastor named Jim Delore, Pastor Eric over there. Those guys would just, they would teach me how to memorize scripture. Yeah. It was awesome, man. My
Sick.
uncle, he would sit and do Bible studies with us, and it was our pastor was Mike McClure. He was he was newer there, and he was he was going through books with us there, and so it was really cool. Just to kind of be it was a whole new world.
Yeah, totally.
It was a whole new world for me. I was like, wow, this is crazy.
Dude, I'm still tripping the fact that you got stabbed 11 times.
Yeah.
That's like God's grace right there.
Yeah. I flipped over in cars with drunk drivers, like I was in a car that flipped over 9 times.
What?
And the fire department told us the only reason our car didn't blow up because we were out of gas, and people
oh my gosh,
try to, just all that stuff, and I think it's, I think about this stuff and I'm like, Lord, like, why did I have to go through this stuff? But this is how the Lord made me have the heart to want to give back to the community. I know what a lot of people are dealing with, and especially kids that are involved in violence, right? If you sit down with some of these kids and just talk to them, they have a heart, man. I mean, they're just, sometimes you can look at the tattoos or you can look at the outer appearance, man, but there's a lot of love in there that just needs to be pulled out, right? And it's just the Jesus model. Spend time with them, just 100%. Like he spends time with his community. I mean, how far, I mean, I used to know this, but his public ministry, Jesus' public ministry wasn't very far. You know what I mean? He didn't travel to, outside of that area.
For people that are listening that don't know even about Jesus' public ministry, tell us a little bit about it and then relate it to what you're doing.
Yeah, so, Jesus, he was in the mix. You know what I mean? He was out there, he was with the sinner, and the people that were the drunkards and the prostitutes. he was in it but not of it.
Yep.
But he was in there being a light. You know what I mean? And Jesus, you know, his style of discipleship was just time. The most important, you know,
like being with people.
Yeah, being with people, his disciples. And you know what's crazy is that if you think about this, the disciples, you know, like during that time, like we look at them, you know, and we look at them like all the, you know, St. Paul and all these guys, but or not Paul, I mean, St. Peter or John, but these guys were arguing with each other. You know, they weren't like these men, and they still had issues as you know as they move forward. But you know what, God was with them. You know, and that's the powerful thing. You know, for those of you who don't know, you know, about Jesus' ministry, I mean, he didn't leave that area. Let me make sure I say this right. But he didn't get on a plane and, you know, take off, you know, to the other side of the world or anything like that. He had a very localized type of ministry, you know, in Israel and, you know, and in some surrounding areas. And he was, look how effective it is today. You know what I mean? Look how effective for 2,000 years it's still affecting people.
You know, and when you read about it, like he would visit the temple here and there, and he would preach, you know, the gospel, but the majority of the stories is he would be, he'd be in with the tax collectors, like you said. He would, you know, be feeding the 5,000. He was out with all these people just by the lakeside, breaking bread inside the houses, just always just going after people that were going through hard times.
Yeah.
You know, the guys that were blind, people with demon possession, they were deaf, dumb. You know, one guy was paralyzed. One guy had leprosy. A dying girl, Jairus' daughter. This girl that was bleeding for 12 years. Yeah. And it was just, and in the Gospel of John, I think at the very end, it says, you know, there wasn't enough room in the libraries of the world to write all the miracles that Jesus did, but
Isn't
they
that
just
powerful?
compiled those ones in the Gospels to show just like a highlight reel of what he really did. I mean, his heart was for the broken.
Yeah.
And he wasn't religious. He wasn't rolling around. I was just talking to someone the other day because we were talking about like, you know, like there was this one pastor named Dollar. He needed like $65 million for like a jet. I was talking to one of my friends that is an atheist, and he needed $65 million to buy a new jet, and he already had another jet paid off. And I go, dude, when you read about Jesus, and he only had a donkey at one point, and he borrowed it to go into Jerusalem to reveal that he was the Son of God, but and the Messiah to the world. But besides that, he was with these ordinary men, these disciples that were fighting, that didn't have all this faith, that were just rough around the edges, and he was with them walking from city to city. Yeah.
You know, one of the most powerful, like, portions of scripture is, you know, after Jesus, the longest recorded sermon is the Sermon on the Mount of Jesus. And when he comes down the hill, there's a leper. And the leper says, if you're willing, you can make me clean. Yeah. So powerful because it's just like, he says, I am willing. Be clean, and he touched him, and that is the power of the word, the living word. You know what I mean? And that's where like when I think about what that, you know, like he came down from this great. There's so many people listening to him speak, and this one man risking everything, you know, because he couldn't be near anyone else because he was a leper. He came out there like, you know, I'm willing to give it. I believe that Jesus can, if he's willing, he can make me clean. And his disciples learned the same thing. You know, if we look at Acts chapter 3, you know, the man that was paralyzed by the beautiful gate, same thing. Silver and gold I do not have, but in the name of Jesus Christ, rise up and walk. And just reaching out his hand. So, you know, a part of, you know, the word is being a part of connecting with people. And I think that's the power in ministry, I think, you know.
Do you, I love having these conversations with you because I feel like, I mean, because we've known each other for a long time. Yeah. How many years has it been? Like,
I think it's eight.
It's been a long time because I've been saved for 10 years. Probably met you 2 years after it, but we're actually good friends. So and I love it because our ministry is similar. We're in the streets trying to do the Jesus ministry. But I mean, it seems like so many people could get caught up in like programs and we're going to do this and do that and bring everyone here when it's simple. The ministry, the Jesus ministry is so simple. Yeah. It's just go out and love on people. And it's not about big, massive crowds. I mean, it's cool, if you're in front of a big, massive crowd. Jesus did have the big, massive crowd in the desert. But it's not like you have to do this big fireworks show to bring all these people together. Yeah. You can literally, one-on-one ministry. A lot of the stuff that I do, it's, you know, as far as like ministry goes, is just one-on-one going out and catching lunch with someone.
Yeah.
Or dinner, or maybe going to a concert and hanging out, or finding people backstage or side stage in the parking lot.
Yeah.
It's really one-on-one ministry. And that's when you read about Jesus, that's what he did with his disciples. All these interactions that he had with people, all these stories that we're talking about, these highlight reels, they're all one-on-one stories, basically, with one person that he's talking to. The majority of them.
And you know what? And you think about the Acts chapter 3, right? Mm-hmm. You know, that one man. When they saw people knew that he was the guy that was sitting by the gate that was called Beautiful, it gave Peter the opportunity to share the gospel. Yep. And I think thousands of people got saved. You know what I mean? In chapter 4.
Yeah.
And we don't know the impact of the one person that you talk to. You know what I mean? The one person that's hearing that message, how they can impact the world. Or just the domino effect, just going out, you know, the people that shared with me, you know.
Well, look at you, for instance. You got saved, right?
Yeah.
Someone shared with you, you got saved. And now, which we're going to go now, I want to take the rest of the show into kind of what you've been doing. But now God's using you to impact some of the, how do I say this? You are impacting this young generation, and they are in a very, very dark place because the situation, not by choice, some are making bad choices, but it's the environment that they're growing up in, and a lot of this inner city stuff. I mean, we were talking about what's going on in Chicago right now. I mean, what would you say? What's happening exactly in Chicago? You said there's more So
I think I don't quote me, but I don't, you know, the exact number. But there was more homicides, I think, over a weekend in Chicago than it was in the city of San Jose that we've had in a year. You know, there was over 30. You know,
in one weekend.
I think it was one weekend.
It's like crazy.
Yeah.
Crazy town out there.
Yeah, and it's. But
like, here you are, God's using you to reach, and I've seen the impact because I went to San Jose and I've met the posse and the kids that you've been hanging out with, and these are kids that were going in the wrong path, and by God's grace, God has used you to have that one-on-one ministry, talk to them, break bread with them, hang out with them at school, and now you're getting them Bibles, they're going to church, they're getting discipled, and their lives are transforming.
Yeah. And it's by their own choice. You don't force anything on anybody. You know, I'm there. You know, I'm present. You know, and you know, and one thing that the Lord showed me was that it's not only the people that are making the bad choices, but when they make bad choices, right? You know, to be involved in a gang, to hurt someone, shoot at someone or something, it affects the whole community.
Yeah.
And so imagine, you're a little kid and you're looking out your window and you see somebody bleeding on the floor. You see somebody getting beat up. How does that affect the trauma affect you? What does that make you? You feel like you have to protect yourself. You feel worried. Even some of the kids, they'll say things like, like, I don't even care if I graduate, because I might not make it. They have death is always in the back of their mind. I live in the Silicon Valley.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? This is, half hour to 40 minutes from Google, Apple, Netflix. You can drive in all these tech companies you hear about. They're all around us. But sometimes it seems like some of these neighborhoods couldn't be further from them. There's a gap, and I try to connect that gap, I work with some of these companies and I get tours for these at-risk youth so that they can experience something, outside of their current circumstance. You know what I mean? Like,
let them know there's more out there.
Yeah, and that they can be a part of it, Take them to Google for tours, engineers will give us a tour, Apple, a recruiter gives us a tour, and the CEO and the COO of VMware come and talk to our kids. So we got everybody out there.
Dude, that's sick.
Yeah, and the stories are powerful. Well,
let's talk about some stories about just basically what it looks like in a day in life with what you're doing in the community. So
there's two sides. There's the side where I'm a crisis responder, where it's hard. Where I'm working with a homicide victim's family or somebody at the hospital, and they're dealing with loss and grief, and we go there, and that's, I pray I never get called. I pray that ministry never gets activated, because when that ministry gets activated, that means something happened to somebody, brutal. And I try, like that it's a harder part for me, but I think that God called me into that ministry a long time ago. I volunteered as a chaplain at the hospital. I just have a heart for people that are dealing with that, and that's a part of it. With our hospital-based intervention, I'll get called a couple of times a month to talk with somebody that got stabbed, shot, beat up. And what's crazy? Our superintendent for the gang task force in San Jose, he says, we have like a short amount of time to talk to these kids, right? If they get stabbed or shot. One time a kid told me, man, it almost hit a vital organ.
Right.
And I said, man, you know what? Thank God you're alive. You know what? You have another day. This is the fork in the road for you. Which way are you going to choose? Which way are you going to go? And, because sometimes if you don't reach them, guess what happens? Dude, I'm 187 proof. You can't kill me. I've been shot. I've been stabbed. And they think they're invincible. Yeah. And sadly, we've had it happen where, the next year or even the next couple of months, that same individual is no longer with us. They passed. Mm-hmm. And so I really have a heart to do that. But 80% of my time is working with kids, in the community. I work with some public high schools, and I do mentoring groups, and I do conflict, resolution and mediation.
So you're actually able to go in there because you work for the government. So how do you talk about God, or how does it all work?
Well, so there's a few different ways, right? So So when I'm working with the government portion with the Department of Justice, which I've done some trainings before in the past. That's kind of outside this. That's a network of faith leaders, throughout the United States, sharing ideas. Yeah. Then I work with the Mayor's Gang Prevention Task Force. That's responding as a crisis, as a chaplain to violence. So when I'm at a school, that's under the City Peace Project. So the City Peace Project basically is, we have a program that works with kids that are having difficulty in school, you know what I mean? Behavioral issues and things like that. And, some of them just need some support. There's many different things. Some kids just need somebody to coach them. So we go in there. We have a curriculum that helps them to kind of grow, and like kind of life skill curriculum to work with them. And I do conflict resolution. There's a lot of it's crazy how much stuff happens over social media. Drama. Oh, you posted that? Was that about me? You know what I mean? Really? So we do.
I believe it, but tell me about it.
Yeah. So I can't even count. I'm going to start recording, but there's so many fights that are stopped just by getting two people in front of each other and saying, "I didn't mean that. I didn't say that." Yeah. And it's just like, okay, but they told me. Who are they? You know what I mean? It's always the they out there. And it's crazy, man. That's a part of what I do. Working with the kids at school, just trying to keep the some of the schools safe.
Yeah. Has it been successful? I mean, do you guys have statistics or?
We do have data. We are seeing some of the areas where there's because we want evidence based, right?
Yeah. I know that's why you won the award, but tell us a little bit about the data.
Yeah. So a lot of the kids.
And if you just tuned in, Danny Sanchez won an award from the Obama administration for what he's doing in the community. So this is the real deal here. So basically, a lot of it is communication. Understanding what comprehending what is being said to them. And we notice is with teachers or with administrative staff at school, sometimes if they don't understand what they're doing, their work, they're doing, or if they are having a problem, taking in what the teacher's saying, some of the kids get upset, and they act out on it. You know what I mean? Like they don't want to be called out because they don't know the answer and they don't want to look stupid, just things like that. It's just, and so that's one of our biggest thing. And I wish I had my little spreadsheet, that's fine.
But we're seeing a lot of it is comprehension, of the work that they're getting, and communicating with adults. There's a big problem with that, so it's frustrating. I remember that, man. I mean, I wasn't a very academic kid. I
was horrible.
Yeah, dude. I don't even I came home from my sixth grade.
From where?
Sixth grade. Sixth, like the end of sixth grade, right, going into seventh grade.
Yeah.
With all Fs, right? But I passed to seventh grade. I'm like, Mom, take me out to eat, you know, take me and buy me something. I just went, you know what I mean? I passed. And she looked at me like, dude, you got all Fs. And it just, you know, that was my life. You know, I didn't really.
I was D's, C's, D's, and F's.
Yeah.
But the F's with the right pin, big pin, you could turn it into a B.
Yeah. Yeah.
It works.
Yeah. I didn't think about that. But, you know, like, you know, so that you know, that was a thing. I think when, you know, like if you can't understand and you can't move, it's frustrating. I remember how I didn't want to go to school. I mean, when you had lower grades, you're just like, any way to get out of class.
Dude, I was in all the special ed classes.
Yeah, me too.
And then that's not even, I mean, you go and you're in a special ed class. It's just a bunk situation for people that stink at studying.
Yeah. And you know what? The thing is that you know, I talk to students, and sometimes it's just like, you know, just being there and supporting them. Like, hey, man, you're at this grade right now. What would it take for you to get here? I know you can do it.
Yeah.
And you know what, man? Just having that one-on-one with them, and some kids you'll see them, man. There was a young man that I was working with last year. He graduated this year. Proud of him, John Sanchez.
Sick.
And he was like he was behind, but I saw the day it flipped in his head. You know, when he said, you know what, I'm gonna focus on school. I'm not gonna mess around anymore, and he did it. He ended up graduating. I watched him walk across stage, and you know, I'm just like so proud of him.
Yeah.
But you know, he had other problems, and you know, in school and you know, outside of school and things like that, and just like a lot of us do. You know what I mean? But you know what? The thing is, you know, kids are resilient. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And he's not a kid; he's a young man. But you know, I mean, there's resiliency, and I think it's just sometimes a caring, you know, adult to be there as a support. You know, it's. You know, teachers have a very hard job. You know, they're teaching students, right? And they, you know, there's probably 30 students per class, and you know, it's sometimes hard to give one student individual care, but they're doing their best. You know what I mean? And I commend them for the work they do. You know, because somebody like me, I was in class making noise and all that stuff. You know, just
who you?
Yeah.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, because I didn't want to feel stupid. I don't want to look stupid. So you know, a lot of the things that I went through personally, I'm able to implement into the ministry. You know, into the work, because you know, like I do work with kids. And I work with neighborhoods, and I work with skate parks to do skate contests and all that stuff.
That's right, you do skate contests too.
And, you know, there's always an opportunity to share, you know, about the love of God. You know what I mean? And
how do you see we have like 2 minutes before the break, but how do you see the response to the gospel with these kids? Are they cold to it? Does it take a little while for them to warm up to it, or are they pretty open, but they want to learn more?
It's crazy because a lot of them ask me.
Oh, they're just asking me about
they're
it.
asking me about it. They ask questions about it. You know what I mean? And you know, when I'm on the school grounds, you know what I mean. There's a separation of church and state. You know, in school. You know, and I'm there to do a job, and my job is to do mentoring and do these other activities. But you know, they ask me questions like, you know, well, let's talk then after school, or let's go talk and about my faith, because when I started this, I was still pastoring. Mm-hmm. So when I was introduced as Pastor Danny. Right. So you know, I'm an ordained pastor, but you know, I'm not pastoring a church now. And so part of it is just like they know me as a pastor, and they always have questions, or they think I'm a priest. It's kind of funny, and a lot of them know.
Well, yeah, because a lot of people grew up in Catholicism.
Yeah.
As well. Yeah. So it's so funny that how people kind of look at. I was asked today by a friend, "Hey, are you allowed to go to metal concerts anymore?"
Mm-hmm. I know people think you're like.
I'm like, a lot of my friends are actually in metal bands.
Yeah.
All kinds of different bands. Well, hey, we're gonna be going to break here in a minute. I have Danny Sanchez in studio. He's the founder of City Peace Project. It's a nonprofit ministry. He volunteers, and he's a lead chaplain for the city of San Jose. It's with the Mayor's Gang Prevention Task Force, Silicon Valley. Sick. And if you aren't aware, I run the Whosoever's movement, and we are touring high schools. So I'm going to tell you a little bit more about that when we get back from the break. We'll see you guys in 2 minutes.
More Live with Ryan Ries coming up.
Is everything all right?
Call now 1-888-564-6173 or post your questions using the hashtag #LiveRyanReese on his Instagram, Twitter, or Facebook.
I think I speak for the entire administration when I say whoop-de-doo.
Now, back to Live with Ryan Ries. Don't say we didn't warn you.
Loud noises!
I'm going to get you on air saying it. So we're going to come back to Northern California and tour the schools.
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay, it's recorded.
Whosoever's
It's syndicated.
Yeah.
I'm gonna copy. I'm gonna paste this. I'm gonna send it to you.
Yeah, for sure.
No, hey, we had such an amazing time last time up there we were up there for a week.
Yeah.
And we barely broke into the east side.
Yeah.
We need to hit dude, I would love to just go to the east side.
Yeah.
And you still talk to Bethany too up
Yeah,
there
Bethany.
too?
Yeah, she's hitting some new schools this year and
See?
doing a great job out there.
We gotta do it. And then you got some schools too.
Yeah.
And you even go to some of the continuation schools as well,
Continuation schools.
right? See, I ended
Hall.
up in a continuation school.
Yeah.
Until I got kicked out.
Yeah.
So it's definitely worth it. But as I was saying right before the break, with the Whosoever's movement, we do tour the high school system. We've opened it up now nationwide. We hit Canada and Mexico City last year. Now we're working on Central and South America. We've actually met with the Gideons. I spoke at the Gideons conference out in the East Coast in Toronto like last week. So we're working on touring the whole Central America and South America with the Gideons because they're in all the school system out there.
That's awesome.
And then we're going to Australia, and then we want to continue to hit our soil, the United States of America, from the East Coast to the West Coast, and definitely love to go back up and meet up with you guys too. So we went to 59 schools last year.
Wow.
We were in front of 19,000 students, and we gave away, after we do like an altar call, have everyone come forward, we ended up giving away 15,000 Bibles, the Gideon's Gospel of John books. So basically we had a response of 15,000 students giving their life to the Lord out of 19,000 students showing up.
Wow.
So we want to continue that. We want to hit 150,000. Hold on. We want to hit 150
God gave you a number. God gave you a number.
We want to hit 150 schools this year.
Yeah.
We want to triple.
Yeah.
That would be sick. So we're like, God, hey, you know what? It looks impossible to do, but with God, all things are possible.
Yep.
We want to reach this generation because as we were talking about, the statistics and everything that's going on, and as we continue to talk about your story, The harvest is ripe. What you
Yeah.
say? I mean, you just said kids are even talking to you and asking you.
Yeah, they ask me all the time. You know what I mean? And they, it's a funny story. It's not funny. It's the way they said it to me was these kids were peeling out in the car, right, up on a hill, right?
Yeah.
Took Dad's car, peeling out, right, and they ended up driving off the hill. I mean,
What?
and they slid about I don't know what they said, about 20 feet, and a tree stopped them. And they were like, when I took them to lunch, when we were talking, they're like, Pastor, you blessed us. I don't think they knew how to communicate what to say to me. Like, you talked to us about, when we asked you about God, you talked to us about God, and I was like, what? I didn't really like.
Yeah.
So they're all, when the car got stopped by the tree, we were like, thank you, Jesus, thank you, God. That was the right moment, to share the gospel.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And anyone that asks, and and when we share the gospel with them, we get them a Bible with their name on it.
Oh, sick.
Yeah. So we get it imprinted.
Well, you showed me a picture. There was you told me a story. There was this girl, and I forgot her story, but you ended up getting her a brand new Bible.
Yeah.
And she took a photo or posted it or something.
Yeah. So every student, there's, students that are dealing with trauma from bullying. You know what I mean?
Let's talk about that.
Yeah. You know what? Because, what's crazy about that is this girl, I was talking to her. She was shaking, and she was outside, and I said, "Hey, are you okay?" And she says, "I just saw somebody, who used to bully me a few years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Look at the impact, years."
Yeah.
And she goes, these people used to tell me, why don't you just end it? They even threw a rope at her before. Why don't you end it?
This is through social media.
No, this is in person.
Oh, in person.
Yeah, she said it happened when she was in junior high.
Wow.
And and we were talking, and I asked her, hey, "Can I pray for you?" And she said, "Yeah." And she said, "Look, I'm not shaking anymore." And then I asked her if she wanted to accept Christ, and she said yes.
Holy Spirit showing up.
Yeah.
See, I'm telling you, man, the harvest is ripe with this next generation, these Gen Z kids.
Yeah, because you know what? Like a lot of what's out there, and I'm hearing the kids talk and stuff, and a lot of what's out there is like that people are taking prescription medication, like
huge.
Xanax and stuff. And it's very depressing, and the music's depressing, and about death, and it's just it's imagine the toll it's taking on your brain.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And you hear about that a lot. People. I forgot what those drinks are, scissor or whatever. They mix the.
Oh, well, I'm not going to actually give the prescription.
Yeah, don't
I'm
get.
not going to give it out over the air, but it's the Zurup or whatever.
Yeah, something like that, and then
the purple drink.
Yeah, and then Xanax and people are mixing this stuff, and there's people that have died. Kids that were in our community that had too much, and I don't think people understand the effect that has on your body, your brain.
Yep.
And it's life and death, and
I want to add something to what you're saying, because I just met with the Orange County Sheriff for lunch a couple days ago. Not the main sheriff, but a sheriff at the main office. He works with all the youth. I'm gonna actually have him on my show probably in a couple weeks or something. But basically, he was telling me about the weed problem. It's like everyone's like, it's legal, it's good for you, and everyone's legalizing across America. He said what's going on is there's all this mental illness going on. He said that the weed that we used to smoke back in the when we were younger, like in the 90s, the leaf the bud or whatever you would smoke would be like 8% THC.
Yeah.
He said that the leaf now that you would smoke the bud is average at 30%, so it's over triple. But he said the stuff that everyone's smoking, the vaporizing and the oils and all the other stuff, he says is 80%.
Wow.
So think about this. He says the leading cause for what's going on with mental illness, because the brain is fully developing until they're you're like 22 or 22 to 25 years old. The
front lobe.
That whole thing. He says because the THC is so strong at 80% that these kids are smoking it, that they're becoming schizophrenic.
Wow.
Yeah, and this is the epidemic that the law and the government already know about, and they're encountering this stuff, but the mainstream, it hasn't hit the mainstream yet. So this whole hype, like, it's legal and it's all good, and get your prescription, it is turning, we are having a huge generation of mental illness, schizophrenia.
Yeah.
Crazy.
You know what the kids, they'll tell me, some of the kids will be like, well, it's legal. Is it legal for you? You know what I mean? Like, do you have a prescription? They're like, no, but it's legal now. You know what I mean? And I don't think they get, and I tell them, I say, you know what, like, do you think it's just, like you said, it's not just some plant anymore. There's all these chemicals in it. You know what I mean? And
dude, they made it a high grade to 80.
Yeah.
It was basically God, the way God designed it originally. You know, I'm not saying God designed you to smoke it, just to be clear, because we want to be filled with the Holy Spirit. We don't want to be intoxicated with wine, or we want to be sober.
Yeah.
We want to be sober-minded, the scripture talks about. But basically what I'm saying is that it was originally designed at 8%.
Yeah.
And now you've made it at 80%. I mean, this is like crazy.
Yeah. And it's like, and you think it's not affecting the way you think, you know? And some people tell me, well, it helps me to do my homework. It helps me to focus. And I said, well, if you need an outside substance to help you focus or help you to do something, there's a problem.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
We should be able to function naturally the way that God made us, you know?
Yeah.
So, you know, and it's hard, man. It's hard because, you know, there's a way to justify anything, you know, to anything you're doing, you know? So, but I think the important thing is having the conversations, not arguments, but just conversations.
Yeah.
And when you, like, the one thing, you know, that I love to do is I'm able to be present with people and listen to what they're saying, and then also respond, you know, and, you know, I don't know everything, but I share what I do know, you know, and I think, you know, like we've seen kids graduating, we've seen kids get back in school, kids getting out of gangs, getting their tattoos removed. You know, we're seeing successes. It's taking time, you know what I mean? Time to get to know the community, time to be in the mix, time to be with them. But we're seeing the power, you know, of love, of Christ. You know what I mean? And
But isn't that the Jesus ministry? It's the Jesus ministry. It's messy.
Yeah.
It's rubbing elbows side by side. It's being there.
Yeah.
It's walking with them.
Yeah.
I mean, Peter, think about what Jesus told Peter, get behind me, Satan.
Yeah.
You know, when he came at him at that one time. And then Peter denies him. I never knew him. He denies him 3 times.
Yeah.
I mean, and then he ran, he repented, he came back, and then God used him big time after he was filled with the Holy Spirit.
Yeah.
But my point is, like, my point is the ministry is messy.
It is.
It's just walking side by side, and it's not like, you know, I feel like a lot of people, they try to witness. They feel like if it's a non-Christian, they got to witness to them. They got to, you know, ask them if they want to accept the Lord. They got to close the deal right there on the spot.
Yeah.
It's not like that.
Yeah.
It's conversations and hours and hanging out and building that bridge for trust to even go into a real conversation where you can even have that.
Yeah, because you don't know what happened to that person. They could have got hurt at a church. Their parents could have got hurt at a church. You know, we don't know what their life situations are, what they grew up learning. You know, we can't you can't just come in and, you know, and I'm not, you know, there's a ministry for that, and there are times when that's effective.
Yeah.
And God bless, you know, that way. But at the same time too, you know, it's listening and getting to know the person and loving them, and that's what I think.
It's not always, you don't always have to close the deal.
Yeah.
There's crusades. We go into high schools, we do these events.
Yeah.
But like I said, the majority of the ministry that we do,
it's
one-on-one hanging out with different people.
And that's and again, like for me personally,
hours and hours.
And that's for me, that's effective. Just hanging out, breaking bread, you know, giving the one thing that I see that's powerful, like, you know, new experiences for the kids. You know, we're, you know, taking the kids on tours, you know, to tech companies.
That's
you know,
dope.
Taking kids, you know, on tours of the police department. One of the, I think, assistant chief of police in San Jose gives us a tour because we want to put a face behind the badge. Because when these kids are on the street and a police officer drives by, they're like, you know, forget that guy. I can't stand them. Why are they over here? You know, and you know, it's funny because, you know, he was a captain at the time. And, you know, these kids were saying, I can't stand police. I hate them. I said, what about Captain Mata? Well, he's different. Well, oh, yeah, you know why he's different? Because you know him.
Yeah.
You spent time with him. You talked to him. He shared a story with you.
Yeah.
I said, everyone has a story. You know, we and this is what divides people, like gangs, you know, and like all this stuff is like we assume what type of people they are. Like all police are stereotype. All police are this way. You know, those people that come from here, that live in that neighborhood, they're, you know what I mean? We build these walls. You know, we need to tear them down and just get to know one another. You know, I've talked to rival gang members, and they're like the same people. You know what I mean? They're the same. You know, in San Jose, it's a lot of Latino gangs, right? And you know, they're the same background. You know what I mean? And you know, just, you know, talking with them and getting to know them and seeing, not just what they've done in the past, but the potential they have to do in the future. You know what I mean? That's why I like taking them to tech companies because, an engineer once told me, he said, there's three things that are important for a startup, right? For creating a startup, he said, engineer, coder, and hustler. I said, bro, I got a ton of hustlers for you.
Yeah, exactly.
You know what I mean? Because a lot of these guys are they're gifted. They're all gifted. Everyone's gifted in some way. I believe that we have a cause in us that God's planted in our heart.
Or that purpose.
That purpose, yeah. And you know what? I think that sometimes we can go astray. You know what I mean? But I think if we help to cultivate that, like me, in my mind, I was thinking like a doctor, police officer, but I'm still able to help people. You know what I mean? I'm there with them in time of grief. I'm there with them to talk with them through. How many the students come and talk to me about? It's
one of the most crucial times.
I
mean, the decisions that are being made at that age, as you're meeting with the students, that could shift the whole direction of their life. Even with the other program that you're working with, the first responders, when there's like a suicide or a homicide or whatever it is, and you're there, the first responder with the family. Mm-hmm. I mean, there's a lot of emotions going on. If there was a homicide or a murder or whatever, there's retaliation.
Yep.
You're preventing from retaliation and even the loss of a family member. I mean, there's a lot of stuff going on at those times.
Yeah, and you know what? I think being present in that moment, like just what? I'm here to listen. I'm here just to get help you with whatever you need, and it is powerful. It's hard, and it never gets easy. Going to a door, talking to somebody on the phone, calling somebody that doesn't know they just lost a loved one. I have to pray, Lord God, please give me the words to say. Yeah. And right now as I'm saying this stuff, man, I'm picturing these families, the pictures of their kids, 17, 15, and even kids that I've hung out with, getting shot and killed, and one young man, when I knew him for years. I took him on a trip to Apple, and for a couple of years, and then I hear he got shot. I think he was 17 years old, man. He had a baby, and 16 or 17 years old, man. And at his funeral, man, I cried.
Yeah,
I went in the bathroom and just wept, and I've done that a lot of times, just wept because of the pain, that these kids are going through. So imagine the family. Yeah. Mom, dad, brother, sister, best friend, you know what I mean? All these people that are dealing with that. And you know what? That's when we can be, a presence, God's presence for healing people. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? I'm not there to give them all I'm there to be present for the Lord as a person, you know what I mean? Yeah. And to support them, But it's that part of the ministry is very difficult, it's I have to pray, Lord, just help me, because I get down. You know what I mean? You get depressed sometimes.
And showing up in a situation like that, it's just having the right words.
Yeah.
You're here at such a crucial place, like I was talking about earlier, and just to have those right words of wisdom that only God can give you to speak life as the few words that you have in those moments.
Yeah. Yeah, because like sometimes like I've walked up to somebody and we caught eyes and I just hugged them. Yeah. And they wept. Yeah. Yeah. Or I go and I'm there and I just like I'm sorry, and they weep. Mm-hmm. And it can be difficult, and even personally, I'm like, man, I need prayer. Yeah. I'm feeling, like, sometimes, like even like these kids think like, I might not make it tomorrow. And I'm thinking, why are you speaking that? You should be speaking life, because when I hear there's a gunshot in an area, and I'm like, I know people that live right there. Right. I'm like, I try to find out as quick as possible, who is it? Everybody's life is important. Every single person. I pray that gang violence and youth violence ends, and, but, especially it's there, when you know the people, it's hard. Yeah. When you see them smile and you laugh with them and you spend time with them, and then they're not with you anymore, Yeah. That's been one of the hardest things about this ministry, and it's on call, a few years ago, I came back from, doing prayer for like, an invocation for our mayors. It was a state of the city.
Yeah.
I'm in a suit. I'm up there and I'm giving this prayer and stuff. And I get home and 2 minutes later I get a call that a young man got shot, and I had to be there and be a part of the death notification. They didn't know if he was alive or not, but the news was on behind the family, and they weren't saying that he had passed. It was sad. And I was getting ready to leave, and the officer said, "Hey, don't leave. They're about to give him the death notification. They're going to need you right now."
Heavy.
Yeah.
Well, you know what? That's why you're there.
Yeah.
That's why you're there. But there is a lot of good. You're here. God's using you in these moments, and there needs to be more of these programs as far as these what is it, like these chaplain programs.
Yeah.
What's interesting is that when I was talking to the sheriff the other day, he was saying that they're always looking for they're always looking for chaplains.
Yeah.
So if you have to be a pastor. You have to be a pastor to be a chaplain. So if you're a pastor, or some kind of leader, I would just look into the sheriffs, and cops. They have chaplains.
Yeah, they have chaplains. Yeah.
So if you're even interested in these kind of things, get online and Google and look this stuff up.
Yeah.
But they're always
juvenile
looking.
hall, jail chaplains.
Yeah,
juvenile
they're
hall chaplains.
always looking in the law enforcement. There's even, I think, chaplains even with the fire department.
Yeah, fire department.
With the military, hospitals, jails. I mean, basically what you're doing for the listeners, I mean, there's opportunity all across the United States, and I'm sure they have this all around the world. But look into it. We need more of these. I was even thinking about looking into Orange County where I live.
Yeah.
See if I can get involved. I would love to be part of the first responders with anything that's going on with the the youth.
Yeah.
That would
so
be
the
amazing.
program that we have, our mayor invited us. Our former mayor, our mayor Chuck Reed in San Jose, invited us. He's a believer, and he invited the faith community to help with gang violence, right? And so we made 3 strategic goals, specifically focused on helping, being a part of our gang prevention task force, and the first one. That I created, not alone. There's other people that helped me from the mayor's office and from the gang task force, but was a crisis response. We created this response to homicide. There was no program like that. And with faith leaders, in our city or our county or anywhere near us, and that I know of, and so we created that program. So our program works specifically with victims, families, and the at-risk communities. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so it's a part of our city and our task force, and we're there just to love people. The next strategic goal was a volunteer mechanism. We have something in San Jose called Beautiful Day. Mm-hmm. They get up to 6,000 volunteers, working in communities, that are impacted or. They need support, and schools, they help to restore schools. And then we have shared facilities, which is, if there's a crisis in an area, churches open their doors for intervention. The other thing is, I also, like I mentioned to you before the show, that I train, I have done some training through the Department of Justice.
Right.
I've worked in LA with some members of the GRID program there, and we did training we had there. We did it in what's the other cities? We convene in Baltimore and different places. But we're out there and we're sharing information on how because people forget that the church is one of the biggest volunteer mechanisms in the world. There are people there that want to help other people. Yeah. Right. Yeah. There's tons of people. We just got to give them opportunity. Like you said. There's opportunities, chaplains at every level, right? Yeah. There's cleanup projects.
So wait, I got a question. Yeah. So we have 4 minutes left. How do people find out about what you're talking about to get involved? Maybe they're looking into something like this. Yeah. What website do they go to?
Oh, the citypeaceproject.org.
The citypeaceproject.org.
Yes.
And there you could just shoot an email over
to
Danny or someone.
Or even my direct email.
Yeah, what's your direct email?
Danny at tcpp.org.
TCP?
The City Peace Project.
Oh, yeah.
TCPP.org. Danny.
Perfect.
And you know, because the other city was Camden, New Jersey. We did a training there.
That's sketchy over there.
Yeah.
Very
Yeah.
sketchy.
They drove us through the cities. Yeah.
Dude, that's a gnarly city.
Yeah.
I've heard about that.
We were in the area. You know, we were at a convening, and one of the officers took us out to what is that? The Baltimore area. It's called the Sand Hill. Winchester, I believe, area. It's where the riots were at, you know.
Yeah.
Where Freddie Gray, where they believe you know, and you know, when we were walking through there, we had about 30 police officers escorting 15 faith leaders.
Dang.
And people were yelling out the window, "No justice, no peace," and they were saying, "The police kill Freddie Gray." It was pretty intense. This was almost a year after the incident had happened.
That's heavy.
It's tragic, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And they had a big mural out there, and you know, it's you know, but again, we went to a church there that's ministering in that community, and it's powerful. You know what I mean?
Well, we have a couple minutes left. In 1 minute, can you give some last words to anyone that's listening right now that might be going through some crazy stuff in their life? What would you say to them right now?
If somebody who's going through like crazy stuff, like
someone that's in a place that, you know, broken home and involved with gangs and violence and stuff, what would you say to them right now?
First of all, I'd say that, you know what, your life is precious. You know, you're not alone. There are people out there that care about you, that love you. You know, the enemy wants a lot of people to think that, you know what, like, I'm the only one dealing with this. There's a lot of other people dealing with this. So I would say reach out. You know, I would definitely, you know, say find a church or find somebody who's working in your community to talk with. You know, you're not alone. And all over the United States, there's programs for all this stuff, right? And I use the word programs very loosely. There's a lot of people that love to help, you know, kids that are, you know, that there's an opportunity to work with and to help be successful. So, you know, I just think it's important to know that you're not alone. You know, you know what, you can get through whatever you're going through. You know, and I know sometimes it might seem impossible, but you can get through it.
So if that's you and you need Jesus, maybe you don't even have a relationship with the God of the universe, he will meet you where you're at tonight. Just say, Jesus, come into my life, forgive me, and fill me with your Holy Spirit, and start to do a supernatural work in my life in Jesus' name. Just say that prayer, save me. And he'll start doing something. Get plugged into a local church. You can go to calvarychapel.com, find a local church by you. Email us at the Whosoevers or Danny at the Peace City Project, or we'll reach out to you. We'll get a hold of you and we can help you get plugged in. I just helped a girl the other day that was struggling with suicide and stuff. I got her plugged into a teen challenge.
Wow.
So we're here to help you guys. Danny, thank you for being on the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Love you, man.
Yeah, love you too, man.
Talk to you guys next week. Peace.
This has been Live with Ryan Ries. To connect or find out more about Ryan, click on ryan-ries.com. Check us out next Saturday at 9 p.m. for Live with Ryan Ries.